Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Yemtem. Thank you so much for joining me today. So we are cooking Ayamase. It's also called designer stew, just depending on where you're from. And it pairs perfectly well with Ofada rice or white rice. Super spicy stew and it's so delicious. You can see the beautiful meats in there and the eggs. So let's get into it. So here I've laid out all the main ingredients that I will need. I have my assorted meats that I've already cooked and drained. I have my crayfish just sitting in some nice water just to clean it out. I also have the larger crayfish. There's some shiitake mushrooms, some onions, and then my bell peppers. I use green bell peppers with the habanero red peppers just for that extra heat. And I make sure I blended it so it's not smooth like a puree. It's more like a salsa chunky texture, and that's what you really want. So I have iru in that pink bowl over there, and then I have my eggs. I think I put about 6 or 7 eggs in this recipe. You can put as many as you want. So the very first thing that you want to make sure you do is bleach your palm oil, and what that means is that you are putting your palm oil in the pot and just putting it on low for about 20 minutes covered. Now I know a lot of recipes always say, okay, you need to put it on high heat for 10 minutes and then the color will change, but that's very dangerous. So if you're like myself, a beginner Nigerian chef or homemade chef, you want to make sure you're always practicing safe methods. So I would recommend just putting the palm oil on low heat for 20 minutes covered, and you get that same smoky flavor. So right here I'm just adding in my onions, the shiitake mushrooms, as well as the larger crayfish. I'm going to add in those smaller crayfish later on, but right now I just want my oil to now absorb all the flavors that I'm adding in there. So yeah, let's just let this simmer for about 10 minutes until we add in the rest. So now that my onions, my mushrooms, as well as the larger crayfish have been sitting in this pan for about 5 to 10 minutes, it's time for me to now add the locust beans. I like to add it in now because I don't want the beans to burn but still get absorbed in the oil. So I do wash my beans. This is the locust beans, or what we call iru in my native language. So this is the perfect time to add it, and then just let it simmer and continue to mix until it's ready. Assorted meat. It's just really shaki, goat meat, and ponmo that I have in here right now. Whenever you make ayamase, feel free to add whatever type of protein that you want. Ideally not fish, but just make sure you kind of make it your own. But the typical meats that you'll find in ayamase are shaki, goat's meat, and ponmo. So this is very classic, very typical. So I added in now once my saute is done, and you also want to kind of fry in your meat so that they can also absorb that oil flavor that you've already had going for like the past 10 to 15 minutes. So now we want to just mix this together and let it simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes as well. So it's been about 10 minutes now on low heat. I'm now about to add this special broth. I guess it's thickened because I put it in the fridge, but I always like to save my broths from anytime I boil meats, and a lot of Nigerians do this because this broth is really the foundation, or like seasoning foundation for a lot of our recipes. So what I like to do is whenever I boil meats, I'll just pour the remaining into this like plastic whatever or Ziploc and put it in the freezer. This one was in the fridge, and so you can see I put about 3 to 4 tablespoons in here just so my flavor can now start picking up. Mix it all in there and just continue to simmer. So at this point, I tasted it and I felt like it needed a little bit more seasoning. So I went ahead and added more of my seasoning broth. I added about 2 to 3 more tablespoons because I really want the flavor to really pick up. And I want all the pieces of the meat to just be so flavorful, because when your foundation is good, trust me, your stew will come out amazing. So I used, about 2 to 3 tablespoons more, and you can see I've used about half a cup of that broth so far. So this stew is gonna be banging. Alright, so at this point, I feel ready to put in my bell peppers. So remember, this is about 6 bell peppers mixed with, I think, 10 or 12 habanero peppers that I put in there. And I'll list the recipe down below in the caption. But just remember, you want it to be like a salsa texture. You don't want like a smooth puree that you normally would get if you were making like red stew, you know? So this is just a salsa texture. And I always drain out the water, and funny enough, I keep that water because that's the same water I'm going to use to liquefy my sauce. Why? Because habanero is spicy, you guys. So you want to make sure you reserve that water that you drain, because as you're adding it into your stew, it's retaining that heat. Remember, Ayamase is meant to be spicy, so you don't want to be adding cold water. Add the water from your drained bell peppers, and it will make all the difference. So I'm letting my stew simmer for about 10 minutes now on low or medium heat, because you don't want it to burn, you want it to cook. So now it's time to add in my little crayfish. Remember, we added in the larger crayfish early on. This little one is just for more flavor and more dimension in my stew. I always like my stews to have dimension, you guys. Different flavors hitting you from left to right. And here's where I like to add in this little crayfish, because then it can now cook with the bell peppers and the habanero peppers. And I'm gonna let this simmer for about another 10 minutes. So you can see the water is rising, everything is simmering perfectly. I'm now going to add in my Maggi. I added 4 cubes of authentic Nigerian Maggi. You can get this at your local farmer's market, but I like to use these versus the chicken bouillon cubes. I think it's like Knorr, because this one just really tastes so good. I don't know what they put in Maggi seasoning cubes, but if you want that Nigerian authentic flavor, get you some Maggi. So yeah, I put 4 in there, and I'm going to mix everything together and then continue to let it simmer. Okay, y'all, so this stew has been simmering for 10 minutes and it smells so good. You can see that it's just looking so delicious. And yes, I'm taking it in little bites just to make sure that my flavor is good. I add salt to taste as needed, and I just keep mixing it because you really want that delicious flavor in your Ayamase stew. Like, do you see the smoke, the fumes just coming up, just hitting my nostrils every single step? I'm so in love with this stew, and I can't wait to taste it. I can't wait to eat it. And the house is smelling so good right now. So my ayamase is pretty done at this point. It is looking so good. It smells good. It tastes good. I've added salt. I've added any more Maggi cubes that I may have needed to. I really didn't have to. So now I'm adding in my eggs. I put 7 eggs into this amount of ayamase, and the eggs are the very last step because you don't want to be mixing too much once the eggs go in. You really just want to cover the eggs with the sauce, and that's it, and you're done. Put it on low heat and let it simmer for maybe 2 minutes so that the eggs can then get the color of the stew. And you guys, that's it. Your ayamase is done. It's looking designer, it's looking Gucci, it's looking Prada. You can now, eat this with some nice hot rice and then some fried plantain, sweet fried plantain on the side, some nice Seagram, cool drink. Just call it a beautiful day because you're eating good food, and this is so good, you guys. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you learned how to make designer ayamase stew the easy way, the quick way, without any hassle. You don't have to fume up your home with smoke because you're trying to bleach palm oil. This is definitely beginner friendly. So please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel for more videos on Nigerian cooking. Thanks, y'all.